You know, when I look at other people, other nations of people, when they face social, economic, judicial, employment, oppression, they don't parade comedians, actors, singers, dancers, and in front of their movement. Negroes are the only one that do this, and this is why we be in this position the longest and suffer the worst out of them all. A subscriber sent me this video of Jason Whitlock, who is notorious for his coonery. He just will take up any position to justify snuggling next to Whitey, and he's not gonna stop until every Negro agree with him. And the name of his podcast is unbelievably fearless. I don't understand how you come up with that title, bruh, but on this particular show, this title was National Anthem. Should we have a new one? He had Isiah Thomas, a point guard from the Detroit Pistons back in the day. Great player, great man, and a pretty good coach. Isiah was saying that there's a black national anthem and there's a white national anthem, and this problem emphasized our separateness. I disagree with that. Even if there was one national anthem that depicted both people, the characteristics of whites would always separate themselves from blacks. When you look at the depths that whites go through to achieve success in this country, and when you look at what black people have to do to achieve success in this country, the two cannot be um, even close to one another. So you should want a song to represent you and you only. You shouldn't want a national anthem that may confuse others to think that you have the same mindset and the same soullessness of as whites to achieve success. I don't want nothing to make people think that I agree with what these monsters had to do to achieve success. You know, Isiah was talking about how when he was playing in high school, how a reporter wrote that he transcends race, which means that, his sister was telling him that, you're accepted in the white society. And Isiah said, you're able to go into white rooms, but because you don't have the birthright, they can still put you out. And see, this is the problem that I have when you have celebrities and comedians and stuff um, being the front and center for social movement. They always operate from the lowest common denominator. They always seek permission and allowance. They're always the ones that's being sent out the room. They don't never think about elevating their position to take an adult position of authority and control and determination. They don't never talk about that. And this is why people suffer the longest and benefit the least. Then Jason Whitlock, like I say, this idiot, he come back and say how Barack Obama is one of the top 10 power people in the world. And because he was the president of the United States. Listen, that's a big lie. Barack Obama's only claim to fame is being president of the United States. He has no business, no industry. He don't employ thousands of people. He don't hold the fate of nobody's existence in his hands. He has the least money out of all the other power people, the top 10 power people. So how does he become top 10? So if you say top 10, what would that put him? 8th, 9th, 7th, 5th? How does a person whose only claim to fame is being a president put him in the top 10? That's ridiculous. And that puts out a false narrative, and people that don't even think on it would agree to that and think that we've arrived. That's sad. Then they had this other clown on there talking about how do you eliminate race? You know, if we have two national anthems, and my answer to that is you don't. Race is always going to be here. It's biblical. God told the Israelites, don't blend with other nations. Don't give your daughters, your sons to their daughters. Don't take their daughters for your sons. Don't blend with other nations. And this nation is another word for racist. Jesus Christ himself said when he was coming back, don't tell the Samaritans. Don't tell them. Why? Because the Samaritans were people of mixed nationalities. It was a sin. So whatever Jesus had when he come back, it was not intended for the Samaritans or the Gentiles. And the Gentiles at that time were white people. This is biblical. You ain't got to take my word for it. Just look in the Bible. Yeah, it'll tell you. Then Isaiah, one of the things that really, what he said that made me really want to lose respect for him was when he referred to the founding fathers as our founding fathers. These are not our founding fathers. We have ancestors. People who passed down our cultural habits, our social norms, our history. These founding fathers removed them from us. So I don't know where you come off talking about some now. These are our founding fathers, and they wrote this Constitution for us to one day come together under one umbrella of America, men and women as equal. Well, if that's what their intent was, point to it in the Constitution. Show me where the founding fathers had intended for blacks and whites to be equal in this country. That's all you got to do. Slavery was not even mentioned in the Constitution until the amendments came about in 1865. And it said at this time, this country has abolished slavery, but if the descendants of slaves break a law, they can fall under involuntary servitude. So you go from slavery to involuntary servitude in the same sentence. Where does the prosperity of blacks come in at? It is never mentioned. It has always been presumed that this document was intended for us, and it hasn't. Stop with this foolishness. Or otherwise, just prove me wrong and show me in either the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. Show me where it's written at. And like I said, they ain't gonna never do that. Like I said, that's when Isaiah said that was a bigger lie than what Jason Whitlock said. The Constitution was written in 1776. The Bill of Rights didn't come about until 1779. Blacks were not freed in this country until 1865. That's like 90 years later. So even if the founding fathers were mere children at the time when they wrote this Constitution, they would have been more than likely dead by the time this amendment came around. Tell me how it was their intent. Tell me how the wisdom of the Constitution would have came from children if that was their purpose for putting black prosperity in the Constitution. Like I say, stop with this foolishness. The national anthem, it should represent all people. It should not represent status in the country. Because if you have a status, the people at the top have more status, more privilege, more power, and more authority than those beneath. It is not common practice for them to reach down and pull up more people up in the top echelon, because we all know people with power, their number one desire is more power. So you want fewer people in the top status. This is why it's not only imperative that we create a separate system within this system. It is absolutely necessary. These devils are never going to do anything close to right. We have to do this ourselves. And this fool, this coon, Jason Whitlock, he don't want to put no pressure on whites whatsoever. He don't want no new national anthem, no new Declaration of Independence, because he claimed it works for us. Even though it was never intended to, it works for us. You actually want to adopt these documents that was made for somebody totally different, and just because it's just so happened to benefit a select few black people in this country, we supposed to adopt this and pass it on to our children and hope that they be one of the few that it benefit, as opposed to putting pressure on whites by blacks creating their own government presence, building their own businesses and industries, establishing their own way of life, determining their own path that is specific for our people, so that we own and control it. You, Jason Whitlock, you would want to pass on that and then have our children take a document that may or may not, and the chances of it not working for is greater, much greater than it is if it did. Your stupidity is epic. And your Declaration of Independence, the three founding principles of the Declaration of Independence is this: that God made all men equal, the government's supposed to protect these Bill of Rights, and the people have the right to revolt. Well, blacks were property at the time the Declaration of Independence was wrote. And the government has been in the business of denying blacks these rights and destroying the communities that we built. So how do we pass this on to our children? Simple fact, like I said, we don't. We build our own. This is not going to get right until we make it right. And Jason Whitlock, you need to change the name of your podcast from Fearless to Brainless, because to take up this position, you can't have nothing in between your ears to think that this is anywhere near right.